with your host, Anya, where faith meets resilience and healing begins within. Tonight's guest, Laura Bratton, is a beacon of courage and grace. Diagnosed with an eye disease at just 9 years old, Laura faced the daunting journey of losing her sight. But instead of stopping her, it sparked her calling. As the first blind student to graduate with a Master of Divinity from Princeton Theological Seminary and author of Harnessing Courage, Laura now leads UBI Global, guiding others through life's changing using the powers of spiritual practice and inner strength. So, Laura, your journey through vision loss is both deeply personal and profoundly spiritual. How did your spiritual practice evolve during that time of transition?
So my first reaction during that time of transition, let me back up by saying, so I was in high school when I first started losing a significant amount of sight, the end of middle school, the beginning of high school, and throughout high school. So as a teenage girl, my focus was not on spiritual practices. I didn't think that would help. I was resistant to spiritual practices because my mindset, because I was in such a deep time of grief, was it can't help. It's not going to make a difference. What's it going to do? I completely doubted the power. And I doubted the power just by spending so much time in denial. It's never going to work. If it works, then I'll get my sight back. I was looking at it as all or nothing. I was focused on there has to be a spiritual practice that'll just magically give my sight back. And then that'll be worth it. What I was missing and what started the transition was I didn't realize the power of spirituality and spiritual practices to change my mindset. So just as I said, as a teenager, I wanted to fit in with all the other teenagers. I wanted to have sight just like they were having sight. I was the only one losing my sight, so I didn't want to be the only one. So I resisted. And then once I slowly began to try spiritual practices, I realized the incredible power of the mindset, of how it could shift my mindset from one of denial, stuck in this mantra of I can't, to moving towards a mindset that was focused on what I could do, that I did have the ability to adapt as long as I tried. So the first spiritual practice that I really significantly implemented on a day-to-day basis was gratitude. So a mentor of mine invited me in those high school years when I was struggling, and she knew I was in that mindset of I can't. She invited me to start writing down 3 things every day that I was grateful for. And my first reaction was, there's no way this is going to work. I'm not grateful for anything. But as I started to do the practice day after day, week after week, what I realized was the deeply healing spiritual shift. I went from a mindset of, I can't do this, there's no way, to a mindset of, oh, okay, maybe this is possible. Maybe people around me are believing in me, so maybe I can believe in myself. And that all started through the practice of gratitude. And following gratitude, there were lots of other spiritual practices I can talk about, but the main transition that showed me the power was the gift of gratitude, cultivating that lifestyle of gratitude, not just being grateful for a day, but creating a mindset of gratitude.
Absolutely. So, was there a specific moment when faith became your anchor, not just a concept?
Great question. I would say there wasn't one huge moment. It was over a series of small moments, day after day after day, of believing and realizing. And just as I talked about, like that shifts in my gratitude perspective, just as I slowly realized that, yes, I was losing my sight. Yes, I was becoming blind. Yes, I had to adapt everything in my world I had to do in a different way from people with sight. And in that change, in that traumatic transition, still experiencing the unconditional love of the Spirit that came through my family, that came through the teachers that I had in those middle school, high school days, that came through community, that came through complete strangers, that came through nature. So it wasn't one specific moment, but it was a series of small moments, day after day after day, that taught me the power and taught me the gift of, I'm still loved. I still have value. I still have meaning. I still have purpose. I am still a worthy creation. I just can't see as well as other people.
Mhm. Sometimes it's in the unraveling that our deepest connections to spirits begin to weave itself in.
Right. 100%. And that was my experience. That wasn't one huge moment, life changing moment, but it was exactly what you said. It was a series of unfolding events that I could no longer deny the power of the Spirit, the power of that love, that connection. As I said, that I just still had meaning and purpose and value. The fact that I didn't have sight didn't mean I was less human or less valuable.
Absolutely. So, you speak about spiritual practice as a resource for navigating change. What does that look like practically for someone facing fear or uncertainty?
So, just as I talk about gratitude, that's often a practice that I teach people. One practice that I teach, that I work on with pretty much everyone, whether it's teenagers or adults, before I even introduce the gratitude, is the spiritual practice of focusing on our breath. Oftentimes, when we're in stress, when we're in times of change or transition, or just any difficult moment in life, or doesn't have to be difficult, just moments in life, typically we're breathing in a shallow way, not a deep from our diaphragm way that creates calm and creates just grounding. So I work with people a lot on box breathing. So to breathe deeply from your diaphragm, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and do that rhythm, do that series of breathing as much as you feel like you need to. If you feel like you need to do it one time or 20 times, just the point is just to get connected with our breath. And the value that I found is, yes, breathing deeply calms us down. And I've also found in my experience and in working with so many other people, it calms our mind down. So when we're having those racing thoughts, when we're having those anxious thoughts, when we're having those extreme fearful thoughts, so we feel like we can't stop, can't control, focusing on the breath is incredibly powerful, just to calm our mind down, just to quiet our mind. Those thoughts may not stop, but the breath helps us calm down. And then, very closely connected to the breath, is a body scan that often is used in mindfulness practices. So I will have people just become aware of how tense are you holding your body? How tense are your shoulders? What are you doing? Are your hands clenched? Like how are you holding your stomach like tightly, like it really tensely? So just becoming aware of relaxing our muscles and again turning towards our breath. So the combination of the calm, deep breathing and the body scan, that helps us become relaxed and grounded and centered. Again, the whole goal is to calm our mindset down, to provide that peace and grounding within our mind. So once I focus on the breath and then once I focus on the body scan, that's when I then introduce the gratitude. So once our body's relaxed, it's easier to focus on the gratitude. Our mind's in a better place to receive the gratitude. And then after someone does what I sorted with, the three listing three parts of your day that you're grateful for, that slowly turns into in the morning, you'll think of something that you're grateful for. And throughout the day, you'll start to think of things you're grateful for. So it's not that for the rest of your life, you're going to be thinking of three things you're grateful for. It's just you're using those three perspectives to help start your mind learning how to be grateful from a constant lifestyle perspective, not just moment to moment.
Absolutely. So, how do you help someone reconnect with their faith when they feel abandoned by it?
For everyone, it looks different. So, and what I mean by that is for me, a way that I deeply connect with my faith is like I was saying, through the love, through the support of family, friends, through just being out in nature. Just the sun is incredibly healing. Just being at the ocean, being in the sand, for me is deeply, deeply healing. For other people, it might be music. For some people, it might be a pet or just being with the unconditional love of animals. So what I do is when I start working with someone after we've gone through the breath and the body scan and the gratitude, before I tell them, okay, let's talk about connecting with faith, just first exploring where do they feel joy? Where do they feel peace? Where do they feel that safety emotionally? Is it in nature? Is it at the beach? Is it in the mountains? Is it with loved ones? Is it music? Is it playing instruments? Is it cooking? Is it reading? So just trying to find out from the person what they connect with. And then once we've got that discovered, it's very easy to make them aware of how that cooking, music, nature, animals, how that resource is their connection to spirit, to faith, that they can depend on that. And then once we talk about that and they spend time experiencing that and living into that, that's when we make the transition of the spiritual practice of trusting themselves. That even in the midst of stress, even in the midst of change, even in the midst of difficult transition, they can still love themselves. They can still offer self compassion, self trust, and just learn to be comfortable in their own skin.
I love that idea. Faith as something we practice, not something we are just given.
100%. Yes.
Mhm. So, you have blended grit and gratitude in your coaching. How do those two qualities support each other, especially during emotional upheaval?
So the grit, first I'll I'll talk about each one and then I'll talk about how they connect. So the grit definitely comes in as a spiritual practice when I was referring to having that self-compassion, having that trusting yourself, believing yourself. That takes incredible courage. That takes a lot of strength and a lot of perseverance each and every day for us to go throughout our day with all the stress, with all the change, with all the uncertainty we might experience, and continue to love ourselves, continue to offer that self compassion. So for me, the grit looks like choosing each day. Okay, today was a really hard day. That particular situation was incredibly difficult. And in that difficulty, I trust myself. I still believe in myself. I'm still worthy. I still have gifts and purpose and value in this world. So the grit comes in having that strength and having that courage day by day by day. It's not the grit of let's push through, let's be strong, just overcome the fear. Rather, it's push through, be strong, overcome the fear day by day by day, moment by moment by moment. So that is the grit of taking it day by day to choose to love ourselves. The gratitude comes in and is such an incredibly powerful resource when we can use the gratitude to reframe our difficult situation. So yes, what we're going through is incredibly difficult, and we use the grit to acknowledge it's incredibly difficult. The gratitude comes in when we can remember, even in the difficulty, I'm really grateful for that friend who called me today and just sat with me in the pain, or just listened to me cry, or listen to my frustration of the situation. So the gratitude comes in it gives us the perspective of, yes, this is really difficult, and I'm grateful for what helped me get through the day. And again, with the gratitude, it's not, I'm going to be grateful for one moment of one day. It's creating that lifestyle so that gratitude is how we think. We're thinking through the perspective of, this is really, really hard. I'm acknowledging the difficulty, and I'm also acknowledging what helped me get through the difficulty. So that's grit and gratitude, each on its own. The power of the grit and the gratitude that works together, that I experience on a daily basis, and that so many people I've worked with experience, is a constant circle and a constant, they overlap every single day, because it takes incredible courage to say, okay, I love myself even when I'm experiencing these panic attacks and a difficult situation, whatever that situation might be. It takes a lot of grit. It takes a lot of courage to still have self compassion and not be harsh on ourselves and judge ourselves. At the exact same time, when we have that self compassion, we can be deeply, deeply, deeply grateful for who we are, for the gifts, for the value that we bring to this world. So the grit and the gratitude are powerful individually, and they are incredibly powerful together, because you need both to make each of them as powerful.
Absolutely. So, can spiritual practice strengthen both our mental resilience and our emotional openness?
100%. And that was my experience, that it helped our mental, I'll speak from my own experience and give an example. So from my mindset that I was when I was referring to earlier when I was in high school was I can't. So my mental perspective was all I can't. So as I'm constantly telling myself that, obviously I didn't feel good emotionally. Emotionally, I was incredibly anxious. I was extremely depressed. It was just a constant cycle of being depressed and anxious because I kept mentally telling myself, I can't do this. The power that I experienced is as I integrated the spiritual practices in my life from a mental standpoint, that I can't change slowly. Again, it wasn't one big major moment, but just over time turned into, okay, I can through focusing on my breath, through the body scan, through gratitude, through connecting with nature. I can believe in myself. I can choose to adapt and adjust and move forward. So, as that became my new mindset from a mental perspective, it helped on an emotional level because the panic attacks decreased. The depression got less and less and less. It wasn't so intense all day, every day. So, again, just like I was talking about the grit and gratitude work together, the mental and the emotional, for me, in my experience, have worked together so well as I've focused on the spiritual practices, the breath, the mindfulness, the body scan, the gratitude, the grit. It's all helped me both to change the way I talk to myself and also just the way I feel, just the emotion of the difficulty. So now, years later, even though I'm adjusted, when I'm having those difficult emotions and feeling down or feeling anxious, I immediately can go right to, okay, what's my mindset? How am I talking to myself? What is my current mindset? And that's when I can quickly use those resources to get my mind and my emotion back to a place where they're in balance and they're supporting one another. So it's not separate, but they're working together.
It's so powerful how gratitude doesn't erase the pain, it just shifts where we choose to rest our gaze.
Right. Thank you for saying that because that's a distinction. That is my goal in my life and in working with other people is the gratitude is not minimizing the pain. The gratitude is not taking away my grief of becoming blind. I don't use gratitude with other people to say, oh, your problem's not that big. What are you complaining about? Yeah, I don't use gratitude to take away the pain. The power of gratitude eases the pain. And as you said, it just shifts our perspective. So the pain is not so intense, so difficult, so it doesn't shut us down. And again, a practical example from my life was no, the gratitude didn't take away the pain and the sadness and all the emotions of being blind. What it did do was give me the strength to adapt and adjust and move forward. So even now, constantly, when I'm in those difficult situations, I remind myself, okay, the gratitude's not here to solve all my problems. Of course, I should feel anxious and overwhelmed and frustrated. I'm not sighted in a sighted world. And at the same time, I can use gratitude to ease the pain, ease the emotional pain of being in a sighted world when I'm not sighted. So that thank you for saying that because that is a big, big distinction that I am very clear to make with every person. The gratitude is not to deny our pain or to take away our pain. It's used as a resource, as a powerful spiritual resource to navigate through the pain so we can keep going. Because in my situation, and a lot of people's situation as well, the challenges continue. The difficulties continue. It's not a one-day event, it's ongoing. So to figure out that spiritual practice that helps us navigate the world and move forward, even when the difficulty is still continuing. So thank you for saying that. That's exactly my purpose of gratitude.
Absolutely. And that's amazing. So, what advice do you have for anyone standing at the edge of life-changing moment? How can they begin building a spiritual practice that truly supports them?
So to answer that first question, circles back to what I was referring to a minute ago about the gratitude. Acknowledge the pain that you're experiencing. And that's what I do with all the people I work with, is just that it is incredibly healing and actually takes a lot of self-compassion and self-love to say, wow, what I'm going through right now is really hard, is really difficult, is stressful, is unknown, is fearful. It makes sense that I'm anxious. It makes sense that I'm depressed because of my current situation. So the first step for someone standing on that edge of transition is just acknowledge the difficulty. Once you acknowledge that difficulty, choose to take it day by day by day, rather than looking at the whole future. And I'll give an example that I experienced. So, my intense anxiety and depression in those high school days was all coming from the mindset of the future's too hard, it's overwhelming, I don't want to do this, I don't have the strength. Because as a person who was just adjusting to becoming blind, I was trying to figure out how I would navigate through the entire rest of my life all at one time, figuring it all out. And that's overwhelming. That's exhausting. So use my experience. Don't do what I did of just shutting yourself down because you're so overwhelmed by the future. Rather, acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the transition, and then just take it step by step by step. What do I need, or what can I do this moment, this hour, this day? If I do this today, that will be a great step forward. So again, it's giving that yourself that grace and giving yourself that love and compassion to acknowledge the pain, take it day by day. And then the third major component of that is depend on the support around you. So depend on the family around you that's supporting you in that change. Depend on the friends around you that's supporting you in the change. Just as I was saying, if it's music, cooking, reading, nature, whatever you connect with, depend on those resources to be a source of strength. Because when we experience change, we get so focused, and all we can think about, our whole mindset is focused on that change and navigate through that change. And we lose perspective of there's still such a part of us that has value and meaning and purpose. So that's the three practices that I would recommend: to acknowledge the change that you're experiencing, to take it step by step. And as you take it step by step, moment by moment, day by day, trust the people and situations around you.
Mhm. It's beautiful how even the smallest sacred habit can become a lighthouse in the storm.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
100%. And that was completely my experience.
Mm. Yeah. And what a radiant reminder from Laura Bratton that even in darkness, the soul can find light. Through spiritual practice, grit, and gratitude, we can turn life's toughest moments into a path of sacred becoming. Follow Laura at Ubi Global. Grab her book, Harnessing Courage, and remember, the strength you seek is already inside you. So until next time, walk with faith, love your becoming, and let sacred harmony guide your way.